Corporate finance practice problem using Excel. Cumulative voting problem number 2. Get ready, it's time to take your chance with corporate finance. Here we are in our Excel worksheet. If you have access to the Excel worksheet and would like to follow along, note that we're in the practice tab as opposed to the example tab. The example tab, in essence, being an answer key. Information on the left-hand side, we're going to populate that, calculate that in the blue area on the right side. Looking into cumulative voting scenario once again. The prior practice problem we looked at last time, a little bit more simplified numbers. We'll use some different numbers, which will make it a little bit more complex this time going into it. General idea being the cumulative voting system, a bit different than the straight up and down type of voting system, or a straight voting system, in which case, in our case, the shareholders, now we're imagining voting for the directors, the board of directors. And normally, if you had a situation where you had the normal or straight voting, if you had a majority position, like a 51% position, then you would basically be able to kind of dictate what's going to happen with regards to the board of directors. If you have cumulative voting, it's generally thought that a minority position, by concentrating their votes under the rules of under the cumulative voting, then have more flexibility to be able to get some people elected even with the minority position due to that concentration. It can be applied here, of course, to corporations depending on how they're set up, what the rules are. It could also be applied to government type of voting and that type of situation as well. Note here that as we think about this, we're looking at how many shares are needed to elect a number of directors, in this case 7 out of 14. So we have 14 positions available, and we're kind of thinking that they're all directors. It's not like we have a hierarchy of position. We need 14 people that basically would be, equivalent in that position. So it doesn't really matter in this case. You'll note that if someone wins number 1 or number 2, gets the most votes or the least votes or whatnot, they have bragging rights possibly. but beyond that, then that's not what we're concerned with. We're just concerned with getting them on there, and so being in the one of 14 positions. We're going to imagine the outstanding shares at the 120,000 outstanding shares. The general rule for the cumulative voting is we, as the shareholders, the owners, we get to vote. Then, of course, for the board of directors, the board of directors then are the people that hire management, top management, and then top management is going to then, obviously control the ongoing day-to-day operations of the company. So then if we have 120,000 shares, whoever owns the shares then have the voting power. Now, typically, we take that 120 and multiply it times 14, and that's how many shares are basically out there that have voting power. Instead of us making each individual vote on each placement of the 14 people, we allow them to concentrate their shares then, and that's what the cumulative voting, basically does in a nutshell. In the shell of a nut, it fits. If you want to fit it into the shell of a nut, like a big nut, like a walnut, maybe, there you go. So here we go. So let's say we have the 7. Now we have the formula down below here, and I'm going to put the formula in an Excel type of worksheet. So we have the shares required equals the number of directors needed times the total numbers of shares outstanding divided by the total number of directors to be elected plus 1, and then that whole thing plus 1. I'm going to break this formula out into basically an Excel worksheet up top, numerator, and then the denominator. I'm going to want the numerator and the denominator in the outer column. Really think it's worthwhile to kind of break some of these formulas up. Obviously, if it's a book problem, you want to work the algebra, plug it in algebraically, work the algebra. In practice, it's good practice to put these kind of calculations into a table, because you can work with a table, and it's a lot more flexible if you want to practice changes that could happen. In any case, we've got the number of directors 7. We've got the outstanding shares are going to be 120. That's going to give us then the numerator. And so we'll put this outside. It's going to be the 7 times the 120. Let's put an underline under the 120. There's the font and underline. So that's basically how many votes are out there, right? And so we'll take a look at that in more detail in a second. But then we want the denominator, total number of directors to be elected plus 1. So the total number of directors that we're going to be electing on the denominator side of things is going to be 14. And then we're just going to add 1 to it. And that's going to give us the denominator. The denominator. This should be a 1 out of 14. Denominator, underline, font group, underline. So that's going to add up to the sum of, the equals the sum of 15 on the denominator. Now we could divide those two out. So let's divide. Let's put an underline here, font group and underline. Dividing it out, that's going to be the 840,000 divided by 15. We have 56,000, and then we're going to basically just add 1 to it, and that's going to be the shares that are needed or shares required, which is just going to be the sum of these 56,000 plus the 1. I'm going to add a couple decimals just in case. If there were any decimals there, then you'd have to generally basically drop the decimals is the kind of the general rule. There aren't any, so I'm gonna go ahead and close that back out again. Okay, so that's going to be the idea. We're going to need then 56,000 and 1 shares to basically kind of guarantee that we can pick up the 7 seats on out of the 14. That's going to be the idea. And that's assuming that the rest of the people kind of work against us. So let's run a scenario and see how that would work. So let's think that through. Let's say we have the outstanding shares and put this into a table. Outstanding shares equal to the 120. We know that the number of directors that were going to be elected are 14. And so that's going to be then the votes that are out there. So the total votes out there are 120 shares that are out there owned by people times the 14. That means there's 1,680,000 potential votes out there. Now, of those, we're going to assume we're the minority. Now, we're obviously pretty hefty in this case, but again, I'm just going to do the minority and majority. You could also think about it as us and others, right? This is going to be us. We're imagining everybody else is basically consolidating kind of against us. That might not be the case, but that's the assumption we want to make so that we can basically guarantee our position. Then you can deviate from there if you so choose based on the actual nature of the situation, how likely things are going to happen. But we're assuming then there's only 2 parties here. There's us, there's everybody else. What if everybody else kind of knew what we were going to do and actually actively then worked against us? How many people could we still get on that case? We're thinking if we have the 56,001 shares, we could still pick up 7 even in that worst case scenario. So that's the idea. So the minority then we're going to say is going to be shares 56,001. That's us. And then we're going to say times 14. That's our number of shares times 14 because there's 14 positions and we get a vote per position, even though I don't have to vote for 14 different people. So we're going to say that we have the 56,001 times 14. That's our number of votes. So in other words, the outstanding shares are 1,120 minus the minority. That means the majority, or everybody other than us, there's 63,999 other votes times 14 is going to be the 63,999 times 14. They have then, there's 63,999 other shares resulting in 895,986 votes, which you can also get to by subtracting out this way, and there you have it. Okay, so now if we go to our strategy here, this is us here at this many votes. Let's make that green. That's us, and this is how many the majority, the other people, all consolidated together, could potentially use against us to block what we want to do. So we're going to say then our strategy is to pick up 7 people. So we're going to say we want to pick up 7 people. Let's imagine we just have a running balance of numbers over here, 1, 2, and bring this down to the number of shares that we're going to have. I'm going to bring this on down to, board of directors. We need 14 people that are going to be elected. And then I'm just going to I'm going to imagine candidate names of just A through whatever. This is their names. I'm going to paste that in. I just put A, B, C down through P. So we only need 14 of these people that are going to be in place. So now we're going to take our minority, let's call them votes, would probably be better than shares. And we're going to take our votes and we're going to pick up 7 of them. So we're going to pick up our votes and divide by 7. And so we're going to do that for 7 people here. And we're going to imagine that A would just pick up the first 7 are our people. These are the people that we want on the board. If I sum this up, that means they're going to get that many votes from us. So if no one else votes for them, then that's how many votes they got, and those are our people. We'll make them green. That's who we want. That's who we want. Now, what could the other people do against us? They can't say nay here. They can't put negative votes. They would have to vote out enough people that would then beat these guys out, beat them out. Now they have more votes than we do, but they can't really do it, and they can't organize their votes in such a way to beat any one of these out. They can make it so none of these guys have first position, but that doesn't matter. They, as long as they're within the top 14, they're in the top 14. It's like passing the test that only like an exam that has a 75% and you get the certificate after that or something like that, right? It doesn't really matter. I got the certificate. You can brag about it. You got 99%, whatever. So we can then say, let's make this. They could say, well, if they were to know our strategy, they could say, well, what's the worst they can do? They could try to beat these out by saying 112003 to try to beat them out by a vote, right? And I could do that all the way down until I run out of votes. So let's say I do it down to here, and that would be, but then this last one, I don't have enough votes. I've only got 895, 986. So that last one, and I would need this last one in place to kick out one of these 7. I need to kick out one of these 7, and I'd need one more person to be able to do that. One of these 7 out of the first 14 positions. But I only have, if I got this many votes total minus the sum of what I already used up, that means I've got only the 119,965. So if I total these up, total sum of these here, summing that up, going to copy this across, and then our totals across this way are going to look like this. So we voted all of our votes for the top 7, consolidated them in. We imagined everybody else consolidated against us, didn't vote at all for any of our guys that we wanted in, or gals, or our people. And so then they then voted for their own group to try to block us out here. So let's see this would be the total votes that we have. These are the total votes. Let's copy this over and just sort our votes now. So if I was to say, let's copy the results, I'm going to copy A through P, and I'm going to put them into our table just so we can sort them without messing anything up. I'm going to paste them here, right click, and paste them 1, 2, 3, just the values. And then I'm going to copy the totals, just the totals, and I'm going to paste them here, just the values. Going to paste just the values only. And then I'm going to make green our people again. A through G, those are the people that we want. Those are good people. Those are good people. They need to be on the board. And then if I sort this, we sort this out from Z to A, we could see that none of our people are going to win. None of our people can say, I got the most votes on that way. But that's okay, because it doesn't really matter. It's not like number 1 position has more influence. They could say they have more. They could say, I have a mandate. I've got a mandate because I got one more, vote than you do. But it doesn't really matter with regards to what you can actually do with the actual power. And that's the idea, because so that means that they could try to, kick out these people. They're not going to be up, but they can't get rid of these on there. In order to have done that, they would need this last one, O. They would need that last one to have beat out one of these other people in green, and they don't quite have enough. That's the idea. That's kind of what you're going for with the idea. So remember, we're not talking about you're voting for a series of positions where it's a hierarchy where position number 1 is better than position number 2 or something like that. It's 14 positions on a board. And so all you got to do is get on the board, right? Get in the 14 position. So even if we're down here, even if we just barely passed the test with a 75.5% and the line was at 75, then we're on, we're in, we're there. We're going to make stuff happen now.